So like now it's like a build up of like certain like proteins and like joints and shit, but it feels like someone's putting fucking.
Are you a vlogger?
A bit of both. I'm a bit of a documenter and a videographer and a vlogger, kind of.
You have a YouTube?
Yeah, and then to like do my.
Yeah, I have my YouTube channel though. It's a,
No, I just sat on urgent care, and then like urgent care is kind of like the doctor's office where you're mostly like people who are like fresh, you know, so like, yeah, but it's like mostly kind of sort of, yeah. Well, you're getting a lot more resin, but they'll put it like.
okay, C it stands for, what was it, Southeast Asian students. And that purpose was, I guess in a nutshell, it's a network formation. Yeah.
And then they're not 24 hours.
So not yet.
So if you want to
for
like 9, head to the ER, you know? Oh my god, that was fucking so. The doctor is like, yeah, your blood pressure also and then
This is the baguette. Okay. Letting y'all know. This is the ride from France. Well, here, but not France. So normally there's so how my family does it. Oh, hi.
Oh wow, I've never seen that.
Yeah, so this is Vietnamese mayonnaise. It's yellow. It's so bomb. Has a little bit butter and lard in it. Hi. So this is pate. Pate is ground up liver, chicken liver. So what you can do is you can spread this on, right? Spreading it on. And this is soy sauce. Sometimes you can scoop the soy sauce to soak the inner bread to get more flavor. I usually don't like to do that. And then what my mom does, she likes to put the condiments first. Condiments? No. Veggies. And then you put the meats.
The accoutrement.
So,
Really?
Yeah, that's what she does. Cause then
I usually put the meat first and then I put the veggie. But it's
Potato,
up to you.
Same thing. So the meats are, this is tofu, deep fried tofu for those veggies people over there. This is cured meat. So I think this is ground up pork. And I don't know this fish, no, this pork. And then they boiled it and then they cure it. So this is pretty cool, it's pretty lean. And this is 5-spice chicken. I think this is grilled. Yeah. So yeah, and there's jalapenos too if you want. Any questions? And there's drinks from Trader Joe's, not sponsored. And chips. So feel free, grab some food. We'll start our event at 12:30, 12:35. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna email Jamie that wasn't coming, and then I opened my email. She's like,
Like
she
meet
just
each
canceled. I
other.
was like,
You don't
okay.
I see.
Is there a spoon up there?
Oh yeah.
Wait, they have it in the brown bag there. Utensils and stuff. Oh, very cool now.
They don't have a spoon. They only have.
Yeah, sometimes they put lard or butter. Sometimes they put just chicken liver. Oh.
I know, but yeah, I've never made it.
That's fine.
Good to know.
So sorry, bro.
Yeah, it's like
Wow, that's so much. That's so much. Oh man, that's a lot. Speaking of Mike.
All right.
Let me see if I can get another snack.
Oh, thank you, Elsie.
You're welcome. Another last one.
Is another plate? Oh, yeah. Oh.
Let me snack that thing here.
Does anyone else need a plate?
That's gonna be funny. Hold on. Alright, so I got my hand. I really like this stuff. See this one.
God damn it.
Ah, yeah. Oh no. This is gonna suck. Ain't gonna add too much mayo. Very bad for me. Okay. Oh no. Let me see. Oh no, that's a mistake. I'll stuff these carrots right in. I'm gonna take just one. This one took too much space. I'll take another jalapeno. Just cause. The parts. I'll take what's necessary. There's tofu, but it's taking a lot of space, so I'm gonna shove that.
I love the pate. Like the pate is my favorite.
I grew up like
I only take. Here you go.
there's a reason why I
That's a big one. It's too much to be a sandwich. If this is my own homemade one, then that was one hell of a thing.
about that last
Okay.
Yeah, make sure you guys sign in as well. The sign-in sheet's over there, even if you're faculty.
Okay, so that's.
What's the suggested donation?
There's no donation.
I thought it was the fundraiser.
Oh, no, not a fundraiser. It's more of a round table. Yeah.
Here you go.
Thank you,
Well,
though.
I was gonna. Okay, if you don't want to donate,
So that's not a failure. It could have been worse. I stuffed it too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's one mean sandwich. Yeah. So. Back.
Our system could be like implemented in the Asian American Studies department. Like institutionally, they can do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there like a program coordinator for like undergraduate students?
I don't think so.
There's just there's just with me.
Really?
Like the undergrad and graduate president.
I think it's mostly Russell who like over undergraduates, and then the Allison the graduate.
And then Aspire has a few mentor assistants.
So I guess now we're shifting to the question, how can Asian American Studies and academia support Southeast Asian students? So just to put in context, Southeast Asian students have the lowest retention rate, so meaning it's taking them longer to graduate or they're dropping out quicker for most people. So what can we do, has an institution through different disciplines and different studies can support them, not just Asian American Studies or Asian American Studies.
I think for me, like, counseling is important for sure, because I deal with a lot of family drama, and like, just trying to go to school, and like, balancing that, like, counseling is important for me.
So like mental health support services. That would specifically be culturally centered in like understanding what Southeast Asian American students would be facing at home. Or like what it means for them to be away from home to like that school.
Culturally what?
Yeah, culturally competent or relevant.
I think to echo what you said earlier, create more identities courses. That's not online.
Yeah.
So like having in-person Southeast Asian centered courses.
I think also having more of the Southeast Asian narrative come out in Asian American Studies. I think in the United States it is 210 or 210 because I feel like I didn't learn. I didn't really even know what like coming into SF State as a first-time freshman. Like I didn't know what the difference between refugee and immigrant was until now. And like even knowing about Cambodian or Vietnamese like history, I didn't learn it until I was upper division. So being able to like talk about it in the lower division courses more explicitly, so it catches people more and like makes them more consciously aware and like, you know.
Yeah. So like decentralizing East Asian American studies and being more inclusive with all the other ethnic groups. Yeah, inclusive curriculum.
So I'm education emphasis for my MA degree, and I think Asian American Studies should, I'd say, initiate those conversations with education department because their readings are super outdated. Like they're still bringing stuff about like model minority. Like I'm over that. You know, it's like, okay, we all know that model minority is a myth. Why are you still talking about it? And it's like, what, you're gonna talk about it for like 100 more years? You know, kind of thing. So I think that Asian American studies like could potentially even bridge that gap by, you know, talking to other like humanities or social sciences that actually teach about Southeast Asian folks in a way where it's not like a deficiency model. Oh, and also I think potentially this could fall within like Aspire, like the peer mentors, but I think there should be a bigger emphasis on outreach. Like maybe even have like 2 outreach coordinators who are like peer mentors, specifically going to classrooms and outreaching to the classrooms, because Southeast Asians are not accessing those resources that are like towards them, and they don't know how to access them, and they don't even know about it.
Yeah.
I think something to echo what you're saying too is it's beyond that issue of knowing the resources, but how do we get them there, like literally like walking them to the services, because sometimes it's just a barrier, and it's the pride, right? Like to echo the mental health issues as well, it's like sometimes we don't recognize that we have, I want to say, like bad mental health, and we have our pride as Southeast Asian, and we're following that mono minority, and so we know these services, but how do we actually like get students there? I think that's and I think you're right, like something like an outreach coordinator or a peer mentor that specifically targets Southeast Asian students and work on that.
And like specifically make that role like an outreach coordinator role, and instead of just like, oh, like an advisor, and oh, you're gonna partially do this on the side. No, like we need an outreach coordinator. It's a thing that we need, not like it's an option for like an advisor or anything. Oh, and then one more. I think there should be semester retreats for Southeast Asian students at the beginning, and I think there's like a like a summer thing happening already. But I think there should be potentially a follow-up in the spring.
You mean as a field trips, kind of field trips?
What I'm saying as like retreat is like having like a space, like a 2-day retreat to actually talk about identity, talk about how they feel being at the institution, how they feel being Southeast Asian American. You know?
I think that's a great idea. If there's no funding for these classes, what are other ways that we can bring in like learning experiences through traditional classroom settings, like a retreat? Right, and maybe that's something that we might have to resort to because of funding, and we just can only do that for like 5 days per semester. But I think that's better than none.
I really like that idea. I feel like even for Asian American studies in general, like I really like the co-work idea.
Yeah.
Holy nuts!
Being able to like see each other other than like the faculty mixers.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I also want to be mindful of who's talking to, so if you have not contributed, I would really like you to share something before we leave. Yeah, because I know some of our voices can be down
I might mention, I was doing a research on, I forgot what it was like, screw me, it was like YouTubers and like Vietnamese American communities and Vietnamese American communities and what they're doing beyond just using social media like Twitch, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, etc. So I'm basically doing a video right now. just giving them a general idea. I was like, okay, what's this? What was this? The current Southeast Asian perspectives of Asian American studies in general. So I'll shut up. Yeah.
I feel like something cool that I would come out to would be like, so 2 things. So one would be like cross-campus collaboration. Like if UC Berkeley has like a Southeast Asian Student Coalition and they have like people that come as like community members that come and talk about different issues like I don't know, like anti-blackness or like, you know, stuff like that, right?
Or bringing SF State to Berkeley
Yeah.
and building a pipeline between UC Berkeley and SF State.
Oh man.
Because
See,
they're like a little bit more institutionalized in that way. Like there's like organization, whereas like we're like in the beginning stages. Yeah.
I think CCSF needs a lot of help from SFSU brethrens right there. We definitely need.
I think it'll be really cool if Asian American Studies can build a pipeline or something that maybe get students from community college to SF State or to Berkeley, and it might be through these retreats or it might be through you know, like collaborative workshops that we held together as a community. If we're really talking about community and academic success, what are we doing to include other organizations that have already invented the wheel and are successful? How do we take those ideas and give them credit too, and not reinvent the wheel?
And then the other thing that I was thinking about was like, if Asian American Studies did like a guest lecture series, or like a series of workshops / lectures that were like hosted by Asian American Studies, where like they came and talked about different topics, like, do you think folks would come out to that?
Yeah.
Like have like academics, like, cause here like we don't have, one of the issues is like we don't have a lot of Southeast Asian faculty. So like if we brought like up someone who's like Hmong, has a PhD to come talk about like Hmong issues in education, right? Like that would be dope. Like,
Well, Fresno State just established their Hmong studies.
oh yeah.
Hmong studies.
I don't know if you know about that, but Fresno State just established a department.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's something they might want to look into.
Yeah, I thought it was a minor, but,
Maybe a minor, I'm not sure, but
maybe it is a major. I don't know.
I think it's minor. But I do know they established a department or something.
I think it's also interesting, like going to what is it called? What do you guys use? Oh my god, I'm blanking out. What is that word? Not retreats. Like workshops. Like when we go to like these workshops, there are like people who talk about Hmong and Cambodians, but then you know like you have to pay hella money to go to these. I don't know what they're called. I'm blanking out. Conferences. Thank you. Yeah, so like when we go to these conferences, like I see those like Hmong and health or Cambodians and health, right? But then we don't have those conversations, like, or we're not able to go to these conferences to actually like talk about or have like or see like what they're talking about, you know? So that's like I like Philip's idea and having people come in and like talk about it. So like, are you saying like guest speakers hosting workshops?
Yeah. So like, you know how in classes professors will bring guest speakers?
Yeah.
So like, I'm thinking, what if Asian American Studies, in collaboration with like Aspire and the Southeast Asian Student Initiative, brought in like a series of Southeast Asian like lectures on different topics, and that was that'd be like a month, like each month would be someone different coming.
Better yet, why not create a conference here?
Yeah.
Why not? If we're doing something like that, that could be the birth of, right? If we're gonna start out with like this guest seminar series, why not just do something big to initiate the movement? Have a conference here, collaborative with UC Berkeley, with the local university and colleges around us, and bring in folks who are master's students, who are undergraduates, that are doing the research, that bring in the cultural wealth that, you know, maybe that we can learn from and share with the other communities as well. And then maybe you can build partners, relationships with them that we can bring them to be guest speakers or seminars.
Yeah.
You know, so that way we can build relationships.
Yeah, and we could even do that for like the high schoolers too, because PACE also offers like a conference where they bring in high schoolers and come in and talk about education, why it's so important to go into higher education. So if we definitely do that for Southeast Asians, like it'll and like they're able to see people that look like them, like yo, like I can actually do this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's cool. I saw a little.
Oh, I was thinking about these guest speakers too. That'd be cool if like, I don't know, like in my head, like I see like a big ass event, sort of like the conference and the annex, and then have, like all these Southeast Asian intellectuals come in and sort of like a TED talk.
Yeah.
And it'll be like a once-a-year thing. And we can pipeline to like San Jose State, because I know they have like a huge Vietnamese, American Student Union there, and also Chinese Student Union, and then maybe even up to Fresno, invite them over.
Yeah, or Evergreen.
Yeah, Evergreen College too. And use the senators. Yeah, like all these people just be like, hey, like, we're having this big ass event,
Right.
and intellectuals come. it's $5
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be ethnic studies based, or whether it could be through like STEM education or humanities literature. I think something that is coming up in this conversation is the presence of Southeast Asians on the campus, right? So I think these are all great ideas. Yeah, and maybe it's something that we can work towards next year is one of these big things too, if y'all are down for it.
That'd be cool. Like, there's a lot of.
Like a festival
Like a Southeast Asian game.
Yeah.
for next year.
Just all Asian games.
Yeah, I mean, like, in thinking, I think that's a totally dope idea. Cause like, even recently, the Southeast Asian New Year, so like, Lao, Cambodian, was it Hmong New Year? It wasn't Hmong New Year. Hmong New Year is later.
It's like December.
Yeah, it's like Cambodian, Lao, Mien.
And
This
Thai.
is recently Mien New Year, right?
I celebrate mine during Chinese New Year. Everybody celebrates differently.
So there's like Lunar New Year, so that's in like February, and then there's like a Southeast Asian New Year, which is in like March, April, and then recently there's also like the 30th of April. So like each of these things, like if we had some sort of like institutionalized organization or a group of students that got together and like put on events like a carnival or like a day of remembrance or something like that, like we don't have that at SF State.
Yeah. Or even like a cultural night, like PCN. Why isn't there like a Southeast Asian cultural night? Right? That'd be hella dope. I mean.
Is there an Asian culture night?
I don't think so.
Oh, or Asian American?
PCN is pretty huge, and they just finished.
What's PCN?
And there's like
Filipino culture night.
Oh.
For ASU, they usually have like talent shows, and that's when they're able to like, but it's mostly. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. They usually have like they bring out special guests to like perform, but it's from my understanding it's not usually Southeast Asian like performing.
Or even cultural stuff, right? It's
Yeah,
more
not even
contemporary.
like cultural. Yeah.
Didn't they have a powwow on campus?
Yeah, they do.
We should do that on campus. It's pretty much like Native Americans, and they have like a festival here on campus. We can do that for Lunar New Year's almost. It's like a huge thing.
Have a night market.
Oh, yeah, we should.
Here, that'd be hella dope.
We get food licenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just because like the idea of creating something or at least like an organization sounds like one of the bigger comments or like about it is also like those are able to go through a pipeline of being able to establish it while people are leaving, right? But it sounds a lot more like necessary to do coalition work rather than making something new. Because I feel like even like having this conversation, we have like a group of folks that were like willing to come in, but also being able to go out and meeting different like organizations that aren't here, you know, that are representative of these communities and being able to understand like if we make this like establishment, we're just making another thing that might be like not like trying to with the purpose of, but like maybe separating off like into another without really thinking about like the campus as a whole or other people in general. That makes any sense. Like having folks from ASU or from like ACE or like different like groups that are already established, to have collaboration, to have more of a unified event, just because of the fact that I feel like it's when it comes to community, we will think like we would have to create something in order for it to create that community, but also being able to establish lines of community already there and communication.
Yeah, I think the partnerships is definitely valuable, but something that I want to be mindful too is that oftentimes within these spaces our narrative aren't talked about or better yet overlooked, right? So I think that's the reason why there is such a high need for students or people who want their own space, because we have to always share a space based on the size of our population or whatever, right? But I think that's a great idea to collaborate. I think that's a need to sustain our community.
I think what I was meaning by that too is like in some way for it to be like to create presence without also trying to like alienate as much as they would do for us, you know what I'm saying? Just because I feel like that happens a lot, especially with like organizations and like specific Filipino communities, that happens a lot where it's like if we don't have like everything along the line, I feel like just as an observer, it's like we'll just create something else.
So you want
Being
some.
aware of it.
So you want something a bit similar to the what was it, the Taiwanese night festivals. I mean, and night markets and autumn moon festivals. Is that it?
Oh, yeah, what I was talking about earlier, it's similar, yeah.
Oh, okay, so collaborations are nice though.
But I totally get what you're saying too. Like, if they're like, you know, like Southeast Asian students in ASU, and then ASU does like an event and like particularly focused on like Southeast Asian stuff, and then it was like co-sponsored by different orgs that have like the sort of like the broader Asian American community coming together. That's what you're trying to say, right?
I've been seeing, if you check on, I forgot what was it, so, most of them was like Southeast Asian countries. Some of them had ethnic Chinese living living in Southeast Asian countries right now, doing a sorts of how am I supposed to word it? Festivities? Is that the word I'm looking? Yeah. So that'd be nice.
Yeah.
So bring more awareness of ethnic Chinese within Southeast Asian communities? Is that what you're trying to?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, yeah. That is true. There's a lot of ethnic Chinese in Vietnam or Cambodia or honestly, yeah.
I was wondering if you have access to like disaggregated data of like how the percentage of Southeast Asian students or like communities.
We're trying to work on that.
We look into that.
It's like, you know, under some deep rug that's been buried away, or
Yeah, because you said that you wanted, because you're graduating next year, right? And you want more freshmen and sophomore or underclassmen to like hold or pass on, get the baton passed down to. So that was just like one way to get outreach to like freshmen and like having maybe like an outreach coordinator to go to those classes. So like if you identify with Southeast Asian, if you're still trying to explore your Southeast Asian identity, then there is an organization or like a group that's like here for you, support for you. So I mean that would be like one thing, but then if it's not institutionalized, then I'm not too sure.
Something that we're really blessed with is Aspire is a first year experience course, and we have Aspire student here. And that's something that we can outreach to, and since our director, which is Grace Yu, is the director of all first experience as well, we can access her and have her help us share out these information of getting more Southeast Asian students across campus rather than just Asian American Studies.
So this kind of like blends to the next page, but going off of what Cecilia was saying, like having an outreach coordinator, and then what Mickey was also saying too, like having someone that's like, whose job, I guess, or like whose role is to plan outreach events. Thinking about like how we can start a pipeline. Well, at Berkeley, when I had first, so admins at Berkeley, like if they fulfill, like given the data, if they go under like a certain category of like being underrepresented, marginalized group, and so so like a lot of those students are like Southeast Asian, right? So under this like Bridges Coalition, and then like sponsored by REACH, which is like the API Recruitment Retention Center, which is similar to like what Aspire does here. What they do is they have like there's like an admit weekend. I don't know if there's an admit weekend here, but like there's an admit weekend, and then pretty much like what that person would do or what the org would do is like reach out to students who like got into SF State that identify as like Southeast Asian or whatever, and then they like invite them to come here for like an overnight stay program where they go through like certain workshops and then meet community and like people who are here, and they can like talk about like being Southeast Asian and have like political issues workshops and that sort of stuff. So I mean, I don't know, because it's a really expensive thing to do, especially to have like housing for the mentees and like finding the right mentors and like putting together materials for workshops. But that could be something that if we had the resources like an NAPZ grant or something, right, use that money to like outreach to students and then bring them to campus, have them stay overnight, and then experience SF State as a part of the Southeast Asian community. That'd be sick.
So funding is a big issue.
Yeah.
Right? With NFUZ, we don't know if there's going to be an NFUZ grant after we're done with this, and we're in our third year. Yeah, they're reducing the fund, you know. So,
Oh, goodness.
so I mean, we have 1.3 million for 5 years, and you divide that for 5 years, that's a lot of money. Compared to a HSI grant, which is like $15 million, right? So we have very low budget in terms of federal grants. But I think something that we should talk about too is how do we sustain those things first, like outreach coordinator and youth events, and how do we get outside funding from community organizations through APS Student Services.
Performances on Malcolm X, because there's like a lot of other organizations that they do take advantage of the Malcolm X, and it is effective, and sometimes it's effective enough where people are either paying attention or they actually look at it. So that's another way to advertise it, another way to look at it, because like we're talking about like the PCN. Or we could also talk about like cultural dances in there. That's added into like Malcolm X introducing like not the so stereotype Asian cultural dances out there, but then like it's like and then like it'll open up people's minds to see like they're like there's more Asian, there's more like Saudi.
You know what you just brought up? Well, why isn't there a Southeast Asian emphasis in Asian American studies?
That's what I'm saying. That was actually in the beginning.
Huh?
What was that? What was that show?
Southeast Asian emphasis. Like there's like, I know there's in the music department, there's a Southeast Asian music class. There's the history of Southeast Asia in the history department. There's Southeast Asian in the United States courses here. And definitely there are other Southeast Asian classes throughout campus. So why isn't there a Southeast Asian emphasis in AAS?
I think in my personal view, I think it's also just based on timeline, how it's going. Because if, I don't know if it's true, but the mass of Southeast Asia didn't come until later in like, in the 1970s or the 1960s after the war. So it's really just based on timeline, because I don't know, I mean, there were like Southeast Asians that came immigrated here to US for opportunities, but I don't, in what I've read, I don't think it's just the percentage was that big. For them to be, like, I don't know. I could be wrong.
I was just gonna say, like, just what I've recognized. I had to take the like Asian American Studies like history course like twice, but it's kind of echoing the same thing. Is like, because what's funny enough is like it gets kind of truncated, or like it just like is a summary in it, like for folks to be able to know about what's happened technically recently compared to like what we have to learn in the same like rehashed like information that we'll get from like another AAS course. Like that's just my perspective. It's like we'll learn from the beginning, and then when we get to something that's close like to like what technically we should be listening to or having more detail, it gets like faster to like being from like the 60s on, if that makes any sense. So that's why I also feel like is because even in like courses too, it's not so much focused on, at least in my perspective, to really understand, like we'll know the history, like migration stories, like waves, which is important, but also it keeps like, you have to rush through it at the end.
My question is to you, since we're relatively new to this land, like when do you think will be a time where we have an emphasis? You know, because personally I feel like just because we're new to this country doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a space for us to learn, you know? So I think that's a challenge for our institution, is that even though we have a low number of students, what can we still do to support those students? Because ultimately they're still students on our campus and within these departments, right? So just because they have low numbers, does that mean they're going to be continued marginalized until there's another boom of Southeast Asian immigrants coming to the United States? So that's something that I don't think I told you, but Russell was like, the reason why you don't offer a lot of these courses is because there's not a lot of students taking the class. And I mean, I understand why, but it's like, is there other ways you can do it through like different organizations like APS Student Services or student organizations where you allow these spaces to happen or these dialogues to happen? Because if you don't support it, then you just continue to marginalize students within the Asian American Studies department.
That students are not taking it, are they accessing? Do they know about it?
Yeah.
Because if I knew about it, I'd take it, but there isn't any, so, you know, it's kind of hard. That's an argument that's, I feel like, invalid.
So how do you think APS Student Services can address that?
I don't remember now.
I think stuff like a conference or like a seminar series or like things like that would be housed. I feel like it would be better housed in API Student Services than it would be in Asian American Studies.
Okay.
I think like we can start off small and like have little seminars in the library, like an hour, and like reach out to students saying, hey, we have like a seminar today for like an hour, 2 hours, and we're talking about like all these like issues and Southeast Asians, and then we can like just keep on having those, and then just slowly like kind of make itself something bigger.
You can also do a mini conference as well. Like just send a call out, and it's like we can host the workshops ourselves too. Like we are the expert within our own families, within our own communities. We live these experiences. We know these experiences. Why not apply it through theories and academia and share it out?
Yeah.
Tabling ever been done already? Tabling?
There's no banner or anything, it's just like, it's all just conversation.
Okay.
But that's a good idea.
I just wanted to lay that with something out.
Yeah.
Because I'm just looking at other organizations that are like in conference and they have a tabling for their purposes.
Yeah. So maybe tabling, like, does Aspire table?
We do, but we table for the whole entire service. It's not just specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. So something that's maybe equity, like making sure that the narratives of Southeast Asians and maybe South Asians or I don't know if North Asians are things.
So you.
No, I don't know.
They're Mongolians.
You.
Russian are included in the outreach as well.
I think studying like the Southeast Asians and Southeast Asian American YouTubers might be interesting because I'm using Vietnamese web like spectrums to like there's Vietnamese YouTubers in Vietnam in America and outside Vietnam. Cool. There's some articles about Vietnamese food YouTubers and I don't know, like really there are Vietnamese foodie YouTubers. Yum.
Yeah. Your take on cuisine. Asian cuisine would be pretty good too.
We should definitely, if we were to do these events, we should or collab with the professors as well to make it extra credit, or like have them like, you have to go to this event, this is part of your grade, to help forward the discussion or students to come out. Because even like outreaching for this was
Yeah, we had to do a lot of manpower. So I guess to conclude this,
I was just really I really like the idea of like having like a guest speaker series or like a lecture series because for Berkeley we did something similar where it was like API Health Research Group and so it was I don't know if y'all know what a decal is but it's more like facilitated by students on campus and so they made this lecture series for like maybe 2 or 3 years and then after a while there got a lot of promotion and publicity that like a professor at Berkeley actually made it into a course. So I think like going off the idea that really like doing guest lecture series where it doesn't have to be like professors that you have to like provide like honorariums for or stuff like that, but like just like alumni or like folks who have again like been been at these types of spaces before to lecture or like to inform and educate like other students and kind of just like a trend to the lecture series. It would be a really dope idea because I know like it'd be really cool to just learn more about like Southeast Asian identity.
So like does it have to like guest speakers?
Yeah, but that's mostly.
Well, yeah.
You know,
But like that same kind of idea.
Yeah, but the thing is that Aspire and API student services are very, very new. Like Aspire started 2 years ago. API student services started last year. So we're relatively new, and I think something that we have to do is get contact information from the AS department who graduated within our department, so that's something we can do. I think also creating a program list of who wants to participate in this without the SFA area really be beneficial, just so that if someone who is like a master's student like let's say my FUA who wants to teach Hmong education in the United States, we can bring her to Humboldt State and talk about it or something like that. You know, so providing pipeline and services and access to our communities to different places as well. And like I said, I really love the Lush series. I think that's something that we should possibly do for next year. Yeah. Pushing on that, by the way.
Last minute, final comments, concerns, ideas that y'all might have? We should get shirts. I think that'd be sick.
Yeah, use photos.
Shirts is a good
Shirts. We could do snapbacks.
Cool.
Security check.
Love that.
We could do like windbreakers, you know, like.
That's how you gauge them.
Look at all that good stuff, though.
I'm like, yo, if I saw someone with like a Southeast Asian students at SF State like windbreaker, I'd be like, yo, where do I get one of those? How do I join this club?
Yeah. Windbreakers are better than t-shirts.
Just throwing that out there. Yeah, I'm just gonna.
So my question is, now that we have all of this, right, that we outlined and brainstormed, what do you think is the most crucial thing that we should focus on for the next year or so, besides establishing some sort of organization and build a legacy? Like, what do you think one of our bigger events should be for next year or so to outreach? Yes.
I guess before that question, asking about like the capacity of the group, like who would be in charge whenever we do pick the events that we're focusing on, who's gonna be responsible to like spearhead and like follow through to make sure that it's fully executed and implemented. Because like it's like still getting established, so just being mindful that like we're Southeast Asian students at like trying to pursue higher education, and so like how can we like divide the work that we can still be in solidarity together, but still like self-care, self-love.
I think, thank you for being so mindful. I think something that so I think I'll be spearheading it just because I'm the liaison between like Asian American Studies, Aspire, and AAP and Home Services. But if Philip applies, then more mindful. Yeah. So and I think like I said, like, this is a community space, and even though one person might be spearheading something, I think we can all collaborate and support each other, even if we're at different institutions as well. But I think something that we need to think about is how do we get these events going so that way we get the ball rolling as well. Because with more events means more people being aware of the situation, and then more people accessing the space, and then there's an actual need for the space. Because right now I think what you said earlier is that people aren't accessing these space, and how do we get people to access these space? And I think one way is provide a space for them. Yeah. My question is, how did PI Studies start everything?
I wasn't there for like a lot of it, but I'm a part of like the PAX meetings now, and it is a lot of like working with the institution, and I think right now they're trying to get Pacific Studies under Asian American Studies, and that's one of the things we're like battling with because we didn't want to have to like, you know, come together like the groups, but I think next spring they're gonna have a minor in Pacific Studies, hopefully. That's what we're working towards right now. But one of the things is like hiring a person who can be under Asian American Studies and both Pacific Studies, because the professor would have to be both or do 3 courses, and 2 of them would be Asian American Studies and then 1 would be Pacific Studies. Yeah, so that's like one of our things too, because like a lot of our courses aren't like solidified, so they could be gone like next semester kind of thing. Yeah, but a lot of the conversations like similar with like what's happening here, like building community and then having like events that bring in like other schools just so they can connect and like build relationships and like make these events even bigger and better.
Yeah.
Did you want to highlight the major things that we want to work on next year?
What do you guys think?
These are digitize them and put them on a list of stuff. We'll bring it up to like Russell, share.
Yeah.
And then probably I'll lead and be like, this is what we came up with. Like, where do you think would be the most feasible for us in terms of like resources that you can provide us or sponsorship, where we could start? We don't have any.
Oh, you asking me?
No, I'm just like putting it out there. Like, because I mean, like, you know, Russell, who's the chair, department chair, was here, and he's like in, but like now it's like we have a list of kind of like demands, right? So like, to what extent is he gonna be in, and then how are we gonna get like the financial support to execute?
I think it doesn't just fall on Russell. I think we're in a really unique situation where it is with Aspire and a Peasley grant. So we have some sort of money from federal institution, as well as the support of Asian American Studies. So they can compensate somehow. And that's the reason why I'm asking, like, what kind of things do you want to see happening in the next year or so? Because then we can start rolling that out. And then, you know, AAS can start picking that up, or the APS Student Service can start picking that up. So that way when we send the list to, like, we're going to digitize everything. We're going to send the list of, this is our priorities. As a community, as a collective, we said that this is what we thought would be cool to have to start with. And then as we progress, there are stuff that we want to institutionalize.
I think for me, what I see as like a priority is like the people to actually do it.
Okay.
Yeah, to build the capacity. So I really see advisor and outreach coordinator.
Okay.
I feel like institutionalizing those positions would potentially carry on these conversations.
Identity courses. I think it's unmediated.
Oh my god. Oh no.
I think for me personally, I really like the idea of building a seminar series, but also in the process of connecting with other universities around campus, and somehow host a mini conference. Something that would be really cool to see is have the graduating master students present their thesis at these conferences.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not graduating.
Wouldn't that be cool though? But I'm saying, wouldn't that be cool to share your research, what you dedicated for the last 2 years, to your community, but also have the support of the AAS faculty there as well. You know, so.
I think retreats would be cool. Like, if not a Southeast Asian retreat, then like a
semester retreats.
I really like the New Year idea.
Yeah.
I really like that. I feel like it could act as a, like solidarity within Southeast Asian, because I feel like for me, I'm Hmong, so I'm like, it's kind of hard, but I actually associate with the New Year's. So it's like something that
Would it be cool if we hosted it during API Heritage Month, like this month?
Oh, that's dope. Yeah.
But like sometime next year? You know, like that'll be really cool to highlight different festivities from different cultures.
And then like you could really differentiate and bring it to light, because everyone just knows Chinese New Year's,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That'd be so cool to have like different groups.
That'd be sick.
And it could be here in the quad.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And then we can have like outside vendors come who identify with the community, and then we can support locals.
Yeah. Building community partnership. Oh, I like you.
Yeah.
I think that's a good starting point.
Cool. Is there any last minute things you guys like to add, or something that we should work on in the future or focus on as a group? Is anybody interested in sustaining this space, coming back again? It's okay if you're in that side.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm really hoping that even though you don't identify as Southeast Asian, I think what is cool is building solidarity, just having folks come in and help advancing Southeast Asian students in general, because it's something that is, like I said, oftentimes overlooked, and we really do need the support. Cool. Thank you so much. Grab more bombies, please.
Can we take a picture?
Yes, please. And if you didn't sign in, please sign in.
Okay.
Everyone sign on this.
100 years. In the start of
Their parents have died.
for Banh Mi Demonstration.